لله رب العالمين.
All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds.
الرحمن الرحيم.
The entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
مالك يوم الدين.
Sovereign of the day of recompense.
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين.
It is you we worship and you we ask for help.
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم.
Guide us to the straight path.
صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have evoked your anger or of those who are astray.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
ألف لام ميم.
Alif, Lam, Mim.
ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين.
This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah.
الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون.
Who believe in the unseen, establish prayer, and spend out of what we have provided for them.
والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون.
And who believe in what has been revealed to you, O Muhammad, and what was revealed before you, and of the hereafter they are certain in faith.
أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون.
Those are upon right guidance from their Lord, and it is those who are the successful.
إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون.
Indeed, those who disbelieve, it is all the same for them whether you warn them or do not warn them. They will not believe.
ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم.
Allah has set a seal upon their hearts and upon their hearing, and over their vision is a veil, and for them is a great punishment.
ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين.
And of the people are some who say, we believe in Allah and the last day, but they are not believers.
يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون.
They think to deceive Allah and those who believe, but they deceive not except themselves and perceive it not.
في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون.
In their hearts is disease, so Allah has increased their disease, and for them is a painful punishment because they habitually used to lie.
وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون.
And when it is said to them, do not cause corruption on the earth, they say, we are but reformers.
ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يشعرون.
Unquestionably, it is they who are the corrupters, but they perceive it not.
وإذا قيل لهم آمنوا كما آمن الناس قالوا أنؤمن كما آمن السفهاء ألا إنهم هم السفهاء ولكن لا يعلمون.
And when it is said to them, believe as the people have believed, they say, should we believe as the foolish have believed? Unquestionably, it is they who are the foolish, but they know it not.
وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا وَإِذَا خَلَوْا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِمْ قَالُوا إِنَّا مَعَكُمْ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُسْتَهْزِئُونَ.
And when they meet those who believe, they say, we believe. But when they are alone with their evil ones, they say, indeed, we are with you. We were only mockers.
الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون.
But Allah mocks them and prolongs them in their transgression while they wander blindly.
أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين.
Those are the ones who have purchased error in exchange for guidance, so their transaction has brought no profit, nor were they guided.
مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون.
Their example is that of one who kindled a fire, but when it illuminated what was around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness so they could not see.
صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون.
Deaf, dumb, and blind, so they will not return to the right path.
أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين.
Or it is like a rainstorm from the sky within which is darkness, thunder, and lightning. They put their fingers in their ears against the thunderclaps in dread of death. But Allah is encompassing of the disbelievers.
يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير.
The lightning almost snatches away their sight. Every time it lights the way for them, they walk therein. But when darkness comes over them, they stand still. And if Allah had willed, He would have taken away their hearing and their sight. Indeed, Allah is over all things competent.
يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون.
O mankind, worship your Lord who created you and those before you, that you may become righteous.
الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون.
He who made for you the earth a bed spread out, and the sky a ceiling, and sent down from the sky rain, and brought forth thereby fruits as a provision for you. So do not attribute to Allah equals while you know that there is nothing similar to Him.
وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ.
And if you are in doubt about what we have sent down upon our servant Muhammad, then produce a surah, the like thereof, and call upon your witnesses other than Allah, if you should be truthful.
فَإِن لَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ.
But if you do not, and you will never be able to, then fear the fire, whose fuel is men and stones, prepared for the disbelievers.
وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِن ثَمَرَةٍ رِّزْقًا قَالُوا هَٰذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِن قَبْلُ وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُّطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ.
And give good tidings to those who believe and do righteous deeds, that they will have gardens in paradise beneath which rivers flow. Whenever they are provided with a provision of fruit therefrom, they will say, "This is what we were provided with before." And it is given to them in likeness, and they will have therein purified spouses, and they will abide therein eternally.
إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَّا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِن رَّبِّهِمْ وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَٰذَا مَثَلًا يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ.
Indeed, Allah is not timid to present an example, that of a mosquito, or what is smaller than it. And those who have believed know that it is the truth from their Lord. But as for those who disbelieve, they say, "What did Allah intend by this as an example?" He misleads many thereby, and guides many thereby. And He misleads not, except the defiantly disobedient.
الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ramadan Mubarak. I pray that you all and your families are well. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing to be here. It's a little quiet in here, but inshallah, with your input, with your feedback and your questions, inshallah, we can have an opportunity to engage in that way. And inshallah, Allah will bless us with a time when we can resume coming together. And just know that every intention that we make for the sake of Allah and for the sake of being together in different ways and different, may Allah reward us for that, right? That inshallah, even though it looks like we're not coming together the way we normally are, that the efforts that we're making, Allah is witnessing us, and we should be witnessing of ourselves, right? That we are making effort to bring the community together in learning, in remembering Allah, in serving one another, in feeding one another, and inshallah in engaging in the remembrance of Allah. And so I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides my words this evening, inshallah. The topic that I will be covering for the next few Wednesday evenings, alhamdulillah, I wasn't able to be here last Wednesday, but Imam Sulaiman, he covered us, alhamdulillah, and definitely wanted to begin Ramadan with the reminders for the fiqh of fasting and just the reminders of, you know, making sure we're all in accord and in accordance with what we should be doing, and any reminders that was beneficial. So alhamdulillah for that. And so I'll be with us focusing in on Dawah and Du'a. And this topic I have been covering, but I wanted to go more into it inshallah this year. And the reason why I find this to be a very important topic is that many of us are, whether we're in the public sector, private sector, we're always having an opportunity to be an example, right? To be a means of calling people to the remembrance of God. And there has to be, in this day and time, someone in a collective of people who are able to hold space for truth, hold space for reminding humanity of Allah and who God truly is. And as we see that there's a natural inclination for the soul of humanity to want truth, to want justice, to want to be with people of truth and justice. And so, you know, I think it's important that when we understand what does it mean to give da'wah, and that we do have the capacity to give it, that we will be able to be a source of light for others, right? And that we can be first, of course, a source of light for ourselves and for our families and close and loved ones, but also for those who we encounter wherever we go. And if we've noticed, you know, just in recent times, there's been a surge of people seeking truth, right? And seeking those who are witnessers of truth and who are calling others to truth. And even just recently, when we saw the verdict, right, the long-awaited verdict that's been for things that we have been, you know, looking for justice, it's good to see Muslims in the forefront of advocating for truth and justice, right? So we had Keith Ellison as the Attorney General, you know, facilitating that, but being situated in a position of influence, right, and power, but also to be able to uphold that, and not just for Muslims, but for humanity, because everybody was looking for that. And then also recently, you may have heard of an officer in New York that was penalized for stopping someone from harming someone, and she was, you know, jailed and held accountable for doing her right job and standing up for humanity. And alhamdulillah, another Muslim sister attorney, Intisar Rob, was able to, you know, participate in that. And so we have Muslims in different facets of society who are able to stand up for what is right, advocate for truth and justice, and also be a means of calling others to consciousness and awareness, right? And so many of us, we have our expertise, we have our professional lives, we have our niche areas that we are doing business in, and people are watching us. People are looking to see, well, what are the Muslims doing? What are they saying? Or even just you and how you carry yourself. And so while we are perfecting our crafts, perfecting our knowledge and expertise and the gifts and blessings that we have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is also a call for us to deepen our knowledge, deepen our understanding, and deepen our awareness of what does it mean to give dawah, right? And how can I be a source of knowledge and information? And for those things that I do not know, how can I access that knowledge and information, right? So, and what am I saying in this particular point is that it's not enough for just a few to know, right? There's certain things that we're all obligated to know as it relates to our pillars and our beliefs. And so it's important that we are all understanding what is required of us, and so that if someone was to ask, we can explain that, right? But also to feel comfortable in our faith, to feel comfortable in this way of life, that I shouldn't be at odds with my own soul. I shouldn't be at odds with my own self. I shouldn't be at odds with others who may not understand, right? And so it's important for us to have this conversation, this dialogue, and this engagement on this topic, because the examples that have been given to us before of dawah has either been argumentative or trying to proselytize and force people to believe a certain way. You've heard of stories where people have just abandoned their families, or things of that nature. They just have hardships. And of course, whenever you're challenging the status quo, or you're challenging the norms within a society or within your own family, right, bringing it close to home, that you can experience discomfort. And so naturally you may want to remove yourself, and say, I'm going to create these boundaries for myself and remove myself from your family, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to have regard for the family ties, right? So how do we navigate that balance? How do we operate and function in a society that many are, while you have those who are truth seekers, you also have those who are deeply rooted in ignorance, right? Steeped in their arrogance and steeped in evil and wrongdoing, right? So how do I balance me, patterning myself on this path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, and living upright in my way of life without walking through the earth like I'm arrogant, right? Without walking through the streets like I know and they don't know, but how can I invite others, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, this is in Surah Yusuf, Surah 12, Ayah 108, He says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, قل هذه سبيلا أدعو إلى الله. Say that this is my way, I do invite unto Allah. على بصيرة أنا ومن تبعني, on evidence clear as the seeing with one's eye. وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين. And I, subhanallah, I and whoever follows me, glory to Allah, and never will I join gods with Allah, right? Surely Allah speaks the truth. So Allah is telling us clearly that when you have truth and when you have guidance, you cannot keep that to yourself. You can't say, oh, I'm the only one on this path. No, you're supposed to, if you're having something good, you're having a good time at your home and you want to celebrate and invite family over, you want them to enjoy themselves. So if you're enjoying this way of life and it's bringing you so much peace and serenity and calm and clarity and just, a beautiful way of living, wouldn't you want other people to experience that, right? Now, how do I navigate that when other people have their belief systems and they've been, told, but you never know until you have a conversation, right? And oftentimes it doesn't necessarily start with us initiating the conversation. It could just be someone saying, are you Muslim? Or they'll see you, looking a certain way, or maybe going off to pray, or you may mention something and they may ask you a question, right? And so oftentimes we don't want to be the spokesperson for Islam. We don't want to be the representative. We don't want to be put on the spot. And truly that comes when, and I'm just going to, say it comes when you don't feel confident in what you know, right? So naturally, I'm ashamed. I don't want to say shamed in the sense of a negativity, but like, I want to know more. And so I don't want to lead you wrong. So I'm not going to say anything, so I'll just, keep it simple and keep it surface and not go too deep, because if you ask me something I don't know, then I'm going to look like a deer in headlights. Right. And so And it's okay for us to be humble and say, I don't know. I have to do more research on that. Or I need to look that up. Or that's something I'm still studying, right? And that was something that the Sahabas, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and radiallahu anhum, they did not shy away from saying, La adri, I don't know. So here were the companions of the Prophet who lived with him, walked with him, and took from him and was learning from him from the Quran and from his path and his way. And which means they were close to the knowledge, right? They were close to knowing, and they would still say La adri. Why? Because they didn't want to get caught up in just being arrogant, like I know and you don't know, right? Because there's always opportunities to learn. And so even if it's that you just know the basic 5 pillars, or what Muslims believe, what are the belief system, what are the belief principles, right? Or you just know this is what we do when we do this, or X, Y, and Z, then you can start there. Or just say, I'm on this journey, and as I learn, I'll share with you. But I think it's important for us, some people may have been born and raised Muslim. Some people may have converted to al-Islam or reverted, as some say. And you have some who are interested in just seeking and just want to be around and learn. And so how do we convey this knowledge? What is the importance of being able to call others, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is instructing us to do, right? And we're taking from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's example. If the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was instructed to invite others and to call others, and we are following in that example, then it is upon us too to call, which means naturally, as a default, I need to know some things, right? And so we know that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that seeking of knowledge is incumbent upon every Muslim, right? Talaba ilm farad ala kulli Muslim. That this is something that we shouldn't shy away from, seeking knowledge. We shouldn't be afraid of knowing. The same way how I said we go further in our area of expertise if I'm, studying law or studying culinary arts or studying, whatever it is that we're doing. It's a vast array of, information out there. Why then am I not putting that effort towards knowing this way of life that I am professing to be a part of, right? And like I said, I'm not talking about becoming a scholar. And that may be your path. That may be your sincere intention, and may Allah bless you in it. And it is important for us to be able to distinguish that, because like I said, there's certain things that are obligatory for all of us to know and certain things that is sufficient if only a few know, right? And that's something that we will address. But when we talk about thinking about how is it that I'm supposed to call others to Islam, then we have to really understand what is it that I believe, what is it that is my practice of my faith, and how am I really internalizing it into my character, internalizing it into my process of thinking, and really adjusting to this way of life, and not saying, okay, this Islam has to adjust to me, right? And not saying that Islam takes away from your culture, but it purifies it. It purifies it. It cleanses it, right? And it makes it brighter and shines brighter, inshallah. So that is our topic, right? Why is it important for us to do dawah, especially in this day and time? Is because people are seriously in a state of loss and are struggling. They're seeking truth. And when they see people who have light, who have knowledge, who have understanding, who are sincere in their character, it's almost like an anomaly now. Like, it's too good to be true if you're actually a good person. Like, people actually get criticized like, nah, they can't be that, right? You don't pray 5 times a day, or you don't eat this, or you don't drink that, and if you do, then it's like, see, I knew something was up, right? So what we're human beings, right? We make mistakes, but what we're striving to be is to be on this path of seeking to please Allah, right? We're seeking to be one who is of the muttaqeen, right? Seeking to be, and not to be of the one who's the mushrikeen, the one who disbelieves and rejects faith, right? Or associates partners with Allah, subhanallah. So da'wah it literally means to call, right? So if I just use the term dawah in Arabic, it just means to call. Like if you call someone to prayer, or if you're just making a call, you can tell people come to dinner, that's making a call. But when you're talking and referring to it as the linguistic and as the Sharia or Islamic jurisprudence definition, it is to call to the way of life of al-Islam, right? And I specifically said the way of life because many people refer to al-Islam as a religion. And when we talk about religion, it automatically puts this framework around how we're perceiving this whole paradigm of religion, right? And some people say, I don't want to be boxed into any religion, or I don't want to be associated with any religion, right? Al-Islam is a way of life. It's a complete way of life. And we understand this. And when we are approaching it as a complete way of life, then we would open ourselves up to receive the messages that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us and revealing us when we read and when we study, to really start saying, oh, I can do this. This isn't difficult, right? And you will start to see that so many things that we saw or thought were hindrances or obstacles or challenges, that they immediately start moving away, right? And the tests and challenges that come our way are nothing but to refine and perfect our character, inshallah. So when we talk about the meaning of da'wah, we're talking about calling others to the way of to the way of Islam. And when we talk about someone who is a caller, right, or a da'i, or for a feminine, da'iyah, right? We have some people who has that name. That we're talking about someone who ascribes to a certain belief system, right? Meaning the beliefs in the way of Islam, that has faith in it and is sincere in perfecting their character in this way, and also how they are with people. They're interacting with other people in tandem with these principles, right? And that they're always seeking to increase in their knowledge. They are, and when I say they, I'm referring to us, right? That this is something we should be aspiring to do, or that we should be striving to do, that we are doing things with wisdom, right? Doing things that we are thinking about, processing, and responding to. Oftentimes we just want to be, involved in what's the latest thing, when sometimes the latest thing isn't the best thing, right? And we have to give things time and just really think about what's going on right now in the context of our circumstance, our environment, our society, and how are we applying wisdom to those situations. And then also that we are, when we're calling others to Islam, that we're doing it with the best of speech. Like, we're not arguing the people down. We're not trying to persuade them and convince them, like, if you don't believe this, then you just lost, right? That's not the path, right? That's not the pattern. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us in the Quran that He says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, He says this in Surah An-Nahl, Surah 16, ayah 125. He says, Iddu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wa maw'idatin hasana, right? And so He's saying, call, when you call to this way, when you call to this path of your Lord, do it with wisdom and beautiful teaching, beautiful speech, right? And like I said, if you don't know what to say, if you don't have the words to say it, or you're still grappling with certain things, and you're sincere in your heart, just say, I don't know, right? Or I'm still learning that, like I said. So it's important for us to keep that in mind, inshallah. And that when we are calling others to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are constantly also calling ourselves. What does that mean? That if I'm trying to invite you to something, then I should look like, or I should feel like I'm comfortable, right? Or I'm at peace with it. But if I'm still struggling with some things, then that means I need to give myself some dawah first. I need to dig in a little bit more and not be afraid of saying, I don't know. Like, I've been Muslim for 20, 30 years, and, I never learned that. right? So does that mean you don't plan to learn it? No, this is a good time. Open up that book, go a little bit deeper. If I want to study Arabic, right? There's so many Arabic classes available now. I think within the past year, the classes have increased abundantly. I may stop doing classes and start taking some more, right? Inshallah. So, I just think it's important that when the world has expanded to the point where so many things are accessible, we shouldn't cut ourselves off from seeking knowledge, inshallah. So that's the point of what I'm saying, that if we are going to put ourselves in situations where we have an opportunity to influence others, and many of us naturally, wherever we're working, wherever we are in school, it doesn't matter, people gravitate, like something different about you, or something I need to know, and they'll naturally make you the team lead, right? Or they naturally gravitate towards you. And so when you have that opportunity, this is why you should perfect your character, right? This isn't the time to say, I have an opportunity to, lead others. No, this is the opportunity to serve others. This is the opportunity to call people to Islam, subhanAllah. So when we talk about da'wah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran as well, he said, O Prophet, truly we have sent thee as a witness and a bearer of glad tidings and a warner. Okay. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also came as a da'i, right? He just came to call. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically says that you're just a witness, right? You're a bearer of glad tidings and you're a warner, right? So you can remind people, you can share things, but we're not to compel. We're not to force, right? We're just to invite. So an invitation, it's like, you make an RSVP, but if they don't show up, mashallah. Why? Because Allah makes Muslims. So that's the biggest thing that, we don't take anything away from this evening or any class that I do. When we talk about doing da'wah as a collective, as individuals, whatever the case may be, that it's important to know that you're just inviting. You're just sharing, right? And some people say, I made so many people Muslims. I made people take their Shahidah. You didn't make anybody do anything. You may have facilitated. You may have invited. You may have been the character, who they look towards. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who turns hearts. All right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who turns the hearts towards him. And yes, he uses us, but we're just the da'i, okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who makes Muslims. So we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we're even putting ourselves in a position of, I made someone Muslim. No, you didn't. So just so you know, right? And we have to be careful with our language because that starts to seep into who you are and how you interact with others. And so be mindful of that, inshallah. And so when we talk about another form, some people say the word tabligh. Tabligh, it means to convey a message. And these terms that I'm using or that I'm sharing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives these terms in the Quran, okay? So in Surah Ma'idah, Surah 5, Ayat 67, you will see this term tabligh, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also instructing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to proclaim the message, to convey the message, right? Like, this is what I've sent you here for. I didn't send you for no other reason. Like, I'm not saying get involved in their affairs. I'm not saying direct people's lives. I'm just telling you to convey a message, right? And so when we have that understanding, this is what we are to really put it in perspective, is that we get upset very easily if we do something for someone or we invite people somewhere and they don't show up. Oh, that was rude. They were a bad guest. We don't know what happened. They could have gotten an accident. Situations could have changed. We always have to be considerate that some things happen, right? Or they may just not be interested in you, right? And so we have to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in this position of authority of compelling anyone to do anything. We're just conveying a message. We're just inviting, okay? And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also used this term when he was on the final pilgrimage, the final Hajj. When he made the khutbah or the speech or the sermon on Arafat, he said, those of you who are here as a witness, convey. And he used the word tabligh, right? To convey this message to those who are not present, right? And so alhamdulillah, we're able to read this final sermon. So many people have the final sermon, you know, posted on their wall and framed and everything, or they've memorized it. And these were his final instructions, his final reminders. And so we're able to read that. We're able to internalize that and say, guess what? I'm a witness to this too. You know, and this is where, you know, oftentimes we get stuck in the paradigm of time, in the sense that the Prophet ﷺ lived so long ago, like I don't have this connection to him. I don't have this, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intentionally laid it out where his life was preserved. This Prophet ﷺ was one of the few, if not the only, where you can know for sure, 100%, where he's buried, where he lived, where he walked, where he was born, right? Who he was married to, those who were around him, and the effects or the remnants of his sword or his hair, like people have it to this day, the Quran, you know, all these things, right? And so why am I saying this? Here it is, we're able to read the sermon and pass it on to our children, pass it on to our grandchildren, because we now are a witness to his words, right? In a sense that, no, we weren't there present in that time, but now we're reading them. Now we're internalizing them, and we can pass them on. So it's a constant conveying of a message, right? And then when we're talking about da'wah, we're also talking about counsel. We're talking about giving people sincere advice, right? And we'll get a little bit more into that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Asr, we're familiar with this, or many of us are familiar, where it says, Inna illa ladina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. So this wa tawasaw, that is not just, it's often defined as enjoining or supporting, but it's also counsel, right? This word watawasaw, that when I'm giving you counsel and I'm giving you advice, I'm giving you advice that is true, right? I'm giving you advice that is going to remind us and benefit us so that we can patiently persevere, or that we can be victorious in whatever it is that we're doing. But this is something that that we should be enjoining upon ourselves and upon others, inshallah. And so this counsel and moving into nasiha, these things that I'm giving you are points to keep in mind when I'm thinking about da'wah, right? So we've given the definition. Now we're given some clarifying points that I should be considering when I am talking to someone about this way of life, right? And we know the Prophet ﷺ said, ad-deenu nasiha, that the deen is sincere advice, or this way of life, this debt that I owe to Allah is sincere advice. And he said, and the Sahaba responded to him when he said this advice. He said, to who, Rasulullah? And the Prophet ﷺ responded, to Allah and to his book and his messenger and the leaders of the nation and its masses, right? So in that order. We should always be giving counsel. We should always be giving reminders, especially where it's beneficial, right? Because we are human beings. We're forgetful, right? And sometimes we just take things for granted. We don't always consider every single little aspect. And so to be reminded is something that we should be humble to receive, right? And so if we're being given an instruction, if we're being given a reminder, it doesn't matter if it's coming from a child. It doesn't matter if it's coming from an elder. It doesn't matter if it's coming from someone who you would normally not take advice from. If they're giving you sincere advice and is rooted in truth in their counsel, be patient with that and receive it, inshallah. Okay. The next thing is to command what is right and forbid what is wrong, right? And so this is something that when we're talking about da'wah, that and this is where I said it gets a little challenging for some, because people will say, well, I don't want people looking to me as an example, or I'm not the best example of how to live your life as a Muslim, right? And so they say, do as I say, not as I do. But in this case, what we're saying is that if you're going to be inviting people to something, then yeah, you should be upholding those principles, right? You should be striving to uphold those principles and encouraging that right action, right? And staying away from those things that are considered a wrongful action. So this is important for us. And so, like I said, I'm going through a lot of the beginning aspects of dawah because this is something that I have been reviewing for quite some time. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah Ali Imran, let there arise out of you a band of people or a group of people, inviting to all that is good, enjoining what is right, and forbidding what is wrong, these are the ones who attain success, right? These are the ones who attain felicity, as is said. And so when we think about this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we have an obligation. When we think of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that when we see something that is wrong, we should try to change it with our hands, right? And if we're not able to, for whatever reason, we should try to speak out against it, right? So change it with our tongues. And if we're not able to do that, then we should at least disparage it, right? Or dislike it, have a disdain for it in our heart. But we know that when we start feeling consumed with a thing, it actually leads us back to some action, right? And when we talk about having the faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the truth that He has revealed, 9 times out of 10, you don't get to number 2 and number 3. Like you're ready to do things with your hands, right? You're ready to make some changes because you see what's wrong and what needs to happen in order to correct those wrongs, right? And so it's not to say that we should always be doing something with our hands. You may not be in a position to, right? So you should at least speak out against it. And when we say speak out against it, that means you're writing, you are talking, you are sharing, you are advocating, you are lifting up and amplifying those voices that need to be heard, right? And it's important that we keep those things in perspective. And when they say it's the weakest of faith to hate things in your heart, meaning that what is to come from it other than, okay, I'm going to make dua, I'm going to, pray on it, or I'm going to just have a feeling of concern, right? But when you have a collective of concerns and nobody is doing anything to address those concerns, nobody's speaking out against it, what's going to start to happen is you're going to have an erosion of community life. You're going to have an erosion of family life. You're going to have erosion of individuals, right? Because we're just allowing munkar. We're just allowing wrongdoing to perpetuate and just fester and become the norm, right? So, and we see this. This isn't something I'm talking about that is far-fetched. It's right in our homes. It's right outside. It's right outside here. It's in the backyard, right? So when we are seeing these things, it's important for us to not shy away from doing something about it, right? And I'm not just talking about going out and protesting or things like that, but what am I using my skills, my expertise, my knowledge, my understanding? Who am I joining with, right? Because if it says in joining what is right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first addressed a group of people, right? He said, let there arise out of you a band of people. And it doesn't have to be too many. Sometimes it only takes a few to get some things done, because when there's too many people around, oftentimes, as they say, the pot gets spoiled, right? Right? Too many cooks or chefs in the kitchen. Something's going to burn. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole bunch of people. It could just take a few. But when you have those few people in a position of authority and a position of influence, right? And I'm not just talking about the influencers that we see now where people just want attention and click like and subscribe. No, I'm not talking about that kind of influence. I'm talking about you are able to not only advocate for change, but facilitate change and actually make things happen, right? Actually shift people's way of thinking, shift how people feel about certain things, how people respond to certain things, right? And we see that where people are being encouraged and just moved by their sentiments. No knowledge base, just how they feel. So you see a whole group of people coming together, advocating for something just based on how they feel, right? Whether they have knowledge about it or not, we see this whole group moving. But imagine when you come together with knowledge rooted in this way of life, and you come together with others to affect change, it would be an impact that we wouldn't even be able to, fathom, right? So subhanAllah, this is what's needed right now. And this is why I'm addressing this topic. It's not enough for us nowadays to just say I'm Muslim, right? What does that mean? What does that mean to say I am Muslim and I'm not able to articulate what that means, right? I'm not able to convey that message. I'm not able to give any counsel if it's not rooted in anything. What am I standing upon, right? What am I clear about? And if there's some things that I'm not clear about, then I get clarification, right? And I find those who are rightly guided. I find those who are sound and balanced to get information from, right? And so it's important for us to understand this. And it's, for me, I'm setting these preliminaries because we're living in a time where people take those who are people of faith, who or adhere to a certain belief system, not taking them seriously, right? I just want to be spiritual. I don't want to attend anything. I don't want to do anything. But when life starts to happen, and life does happen, all of a sudden you need help and you need guidance from someone who's a spiritual guide, right? So you're going to look for something. And where are those people? Who are those people? These people are you, right? And so it's incumbent upon us to do our due diligence and make sure that we are being of that band who's enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong, right? So when we talk about, and I'm just going to go into this really quickly, we talk about the stipulations of da'wah, that when we break it up into the fardul ayn and fardul kifaya. Fardul ayn being that what every individual is responsible for, male or female, once you have reached the age of responsibility and maturity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Surah Yusuf again, this is the same reminder that this is my way and I do invite unto Allah on evidence that is clear, right? So anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed for us to do, the 5 pillars, that is what is incumbent upon us, right? So that means I should know my shahadatain. I should know that I am accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I am witnessing this in every aspect of my life. That when I'm conducting myself, when I'm moving, throughout this earth, that I'm always conscious and aware of my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I am in service, in pleasing Allah, enjoining the right, forbidding the wrong, right? And that I'm acknowledging and witnessing that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger, right? And his prophet. So moving into our pillars, right? Our salat. That's our constant communication and focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it always is bringing us back to our center, always bringing us back to the direction that we're seeking to attain, right? We always are reminded of our goal. Our goal is Allah. Allah is our aim and his pleasure. That's what we're seeking, inshallah. Right? So we do that constantly, right? Because so many things can happen throughout the day. So our prayer brings us back to the center. And alhamdulillah for Ramadan, right? That now we're really on it. We know every single prayer time, right? Alhamdulillah. Even the children, those who are just starting to fast, may Allah bless them and preserve them and for their efforts and their intentions. And keep them strong and help your children if they are trying to do a half day or things like that. Encourage them, help them, and motivate them, because this is building their spiritual muscles. It's too much weakness out there. When I say weakness, not mean weakness like in just mind, but you're susceptible to the influences of shaitan when you don't have a strong foundation. And that's just it, right? You saw that in the reading for the juz, right? That Iblis, when he did not obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he did not bow down to Adam, he said, give me respite. until the day of judgment, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted that to him. And then what was his response? He said, "Aghwaytani," that he blamed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, you put me in this position. You created me like this. You set me up. You knew I was going to set them up and make them uncover their adornment, right? Their shame. And so in his arrogance, he blamed Allah for his actions. Subhanallah, astaghfirullah, right? And when we think about that, we have to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position of Iblis or to be influenced by Iblis and his army, right? Shaitan and his army. So it's important for us to be clear on why we pray and why we should know how to pray. And I'm not just talking about the 5 daily prayers, but also you can increase, right? There's different types of prayers that you can increase on. So it's good to know. But making sure we're fulfilling those salat. And then the zakat. I think it's very important. Many may not be clear on the rulings of zakat. And this is where we have to making sure we're deepening our knowledge that this is something that I'm obligated to do once a year. And it's after I have, used my earnings to cover my basic essentials and my needs. And what I have left over is 2.5% of that. That's a mercy. So whoever has something, you have something to give, no matter how small, no matter how large. But if everybody was doing their part, who is of sound mind and has the capacity, then you will see society, or you will see the Muslim community not have people in a state of begging or destitution or things like that. You will be able to take care of the ones in need and situate them to be able to take care of themselves, because the whole point is not to stay in that position, right? We're supposed to be uplifting one another anyhow. And so moving into our fasting, moving into our Hajj, all of these pillars, when we think about these 5 pillars, it's literally how we round out our lives, right? We're establishing our connection and our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we move into our relationship with other people. Then we move our relationship into community life, right? So it's a growth, it's a development, it's an expansion when we think about it, right? And we know Imam Muhammad, he gave us even more insight into how these 5 pillars connect with our 5 senses, how they connect with our spiritual life, our material life. And we, of course, that's a whole nother class we can go into. But what I'm saying for you all right now and for us is that if there are things that we don't know about our basic 5 pillars, about what is obligatory for us or what we're responsible for knowing, then this is where I need to begin. This is where I need to deepen my knowledge, right? And if I am feeling comfortable and sufficient, I have covered these 5 pillars, I have, read about it, studied about it, I've debated about it, and now I can move into something that is considered fardu kafaya, right? What is responsible upon the people of knowledge, specifically, the scholars, right? I can improve my Quranic recitation. I can improve my Quranic memorization. I can study hadith in detail. I can study ulum al-Quran or tafsir. There's so many different sciences, the science of inheritance law, and all these different facets, right? And I think it's important for us to just put that in a context. The same way how you will go for a PhD, you can actually go into that level of learning and studying within these sciences, right? There are volumes of texts and books that people either study, preserve, and then are able to teach it just to complete this science. When we talk about tafsir or ulum, all these different foundational sciences that are built upon, right? And particularly when we studied long ago, it was a college of Dawah. But after you completed that, everyone pretty much had to go through the college of Dawah, but then you went into your expertise, right? You went into your specialty. And so it's important that we don't discount those specialties or that scholarship, because it's an in-depth knowledge that you can, go deeper in. So whatever you may be inclined to, whether it's seerah, the history, whether it's tafsir, understanding the Quran in its expansiveness, as Imam Sulaiman shared the other day, giving us just more understanding, that we're not just throwing these terms out there And even when we're studying hadith, it's not just, okay, this is what it says. It's, well, who narrated it? Is the sound and, who passed it on, those kind of things. So it's important for us to understand that. And why is that important is because it's going to be a jihad. It's going to be a struggle of your nafs because you will be challenged, right? It's challenging when you're trying to convey something to someone and you're like, I don't know how to say this, or, well, I'm not sure if I believe this. Well, I heard, or I think it might be in the Quran. I'm not sure. So it's, how can you convey anything if you don't know something, right? So it's important for us to deepen our knowledge and understanding of our fardul ayn, our pillars, and then we can expand into what, specialty we may want to go into. And like I said, when we talk about doing dawah, it does take you to have to give of yourself, right? To spend time to convey a message to others and to be able to share this information in a way that is inviting, that you're able to keep your peace, to be patient with yourself, even when people don't understand, right? And when you have a situation and circumstance that we're in where people have been fed a false concept of who God is, then it's like you're really back at the drawing board, right? You have to start at the beginning, because if I'm trying to convey to you that there's only one God, he didn't come in the form of any man, he didn't die, you have a direct connection to him. You don't have to go through any preacher, imam, or priest, or high priestess, or goddess, or anything. You have a direct connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That can, throw people off. And it can challenge, because you're challenging their foundation. And they've been seeing life through this paradigm. So even for us as Muslims, growing up within the context of a Christian-based society, we have to do dawah to ourselves, because oftentimes we approach Muslims as a non-Muslim, right? I'm going to come and just beat you over the head with this Quran. That's not the way of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm going to, force my children to do that. No, that's not the way. Where's the beautiful speech? Where's the beautiful character? Where's the patience? Where's the moral courage in the face of injustice? Where is that? We've become quiet. The good people are just, in their homes being good, isolated. I mean, I know we're in quarantine, but this is a time when we have to deepen our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase our knowledge with sincerity. And I say sincerity because we don't want to do, well, I'm going to know something so I can go tell somebody something. No. Error. just start over, right? Press the rerun button, or reset, I should say, right? But I'm going to pause here, inshallah. But what I wanted to close with is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is situating us to be of that band of people, inviting the good and forbidding the wrongdoing, and inshallah starting with ourselves, right? So if I was to do a checklist of myself, where am I as it relates to my 5 pillars? If I wanted to do on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I in my awareness and cognizance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that I do? That I know when I'm about to do something, I'm like, I shouldn't do that, right? Or something that's going to encourage me, increase me to go to Allah. Yes, I'm going to make time for that, right? My salat, where am I with that? So do a little self-assessment. We do self-assessment, pre-checks, all those kind of things for everything else. Do it for my 5 pillars and assess myself. What do I want to learn more about? And inshallah, when we make these demands on our own self and we obligate ourselves to know and not be comfortable in our ignorance, and I say that with the sincerity of love and encouragement for us to move away from being comfortable with not knowing. I'm going to leave it at that, inshallah. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. يا رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. And I didn't see any questions from anybody, so I pray that everything was clear and that Allah accepts this from us. May Allah accept our fast. Ramadan Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum.